turned around and I went right back to where I previously knelt, which was right at Mr. O'Keefe's head. And then I took over the ventilation aspect of a cardiac arrest. So I was in charge of the airway. So I began giving him positive pressure ventilations with a bag valve mask, which is just a glorified balloon that you can push oxygen through and down into your respiratory tract to get oxygen moving. While I was doing that, I believe firefighter EMT Kelly had begun CPR.
So is this fair to say it's a team effort?
Yes, sir.
A coordinated effort?
Very much so.
And depending on where you're placed, whether in the back of the ambulance or driving or leading, does everybody have an important role to play?
Yes. Yeah, we work in conjunction with each other. Typically, the most well-defined roles in a cardiac arrest in EMS is your airway monitor, which was myself in this situation, and then your cardiac and medication administration, which is that would be Anthony Flamati, that would be Tony. Just because of my position at the head, I just took over the ventilation aspect, and that was where I remained throughout the call.
You said you went back to try to help Mr. O'Keefe, and you were giving, helping at the airway. Do you have to actually get on the ground to do that?
Yes, sir. I was kneeling at his head.
While you were kneeling at his head, well, let me ask you more of a background question. Is it helpful to get information about the history of the person when you're trying to treat them when you happen upon a scene and you don't know the history?
Yes, sir, very much. Getting information on medications, history, and allergies is our top priorities in any call, not even this call, just really any your run-of-the-mill fall or chest pain. That's typically the first questions that we ask. What medications are you on? What medical history do you have? And do you have any allergies? The medical history is important because if you've had heart attacks in the past, or just using a generalized example, if you've had heart attacks in the past, does this feel like a previous heart attack? It kind of gives us something to go off of.
As you were kneeling, I want you to take us to that moment. As you're kneeling, trying to help Mr. O'Keefe, did you have a chance at any point to look up?
I did.
And when you looked up when you were trying to help Mr. O'Keefe, can you tell us who you saw?
I saw a middle-aged male, middle-aged female, with blood on her face. And real quick, as I was in the process of providing ventilations, I said, do you know this person?
The person that you looked up and saw that was standing over you with blood on her face, do you recognize that person in this courtroom?
Yes, sir.
With the court's permission, sir, could you point out that person that you looked up and saw?
It's, in between Mr. Jackson or next to Mr. Jackson.
I see. And when you looked up and saw that person and asked about any background, what did she say to you?
I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
How clearly do you remember her words saying to you, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him?
I remember it very distinctly.
You've been to a lot of calls over the years and since.
Yes, sir.
Would you say hundreds or thousands?
Thousands.
Do you remember all of them?
I remember aspects of various calls, but not all of them, no.
Do some stand out more than others?
Yes, sir.
Did this particular moment stand out more as compared to your typical or most calls that you've been to?
It did, just because of the setting. I mean, it was the weather, it was the unknown factors, and it was the attempting to try and get information and not really being able to glean anything from that.
After the defendant said to you, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, did you ask any follow-up questions?
I really didn't get a chance to, because following that, the individual just kind of walked away, or just kind of went in a different direction. I wasn't able to ask any follow-up questions.
Have you ever received any police training?
No, sir.
Are you a police officer?
No, sir.
When you're helping a patient, do you have any interest in detective work?
No, sir.
Do you have any interest in investigating potential crimes?
At that time, in this particular instance, because I was at the airway, that is a pretty critical aspect of a cardiac arrest. I was stuck there. I couldn't get up and kind of follow up on that at all. I I was there doing that ventilation.
Is it your job to investigate cases or simply to get information to help treatment?
Just the information.
When you go out as a firefighter paramedic, do you have a purposeful cause?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
To save lives.
And is that your only focus?
In this instance, it was attempting to restore circulation and breathing.
At some point with your colleagues, did you lift Mr. O'Keefe from the ground?
We did.
When you lift him, what do you put him on?
So we put him on, it's called a scoop stretcher. It's basically just a hard plastic moving device with some seatbelts on it, just to get the patient up and onto the stretcher. And then from there, we can move from the stretcher to the ambulance.
After you lift him to the stretcher, tell us what happens next.
So we put Mr. O'Keefe on the scoop stretcher, and we were able to get him onto the stretcher itself and then off to the ambulance. From there, I maintained my role as the airway individual on this call. So we made our way to the ambulance. I got in the tech seat, which is directly behind where the stretcher locks in. So I had access to the airway again. I was continuing to provide positive pressure ventilations to Mr. O'Keefe, and we had put in an OPA as well, which is just a plastic hook, if you will. It just keeps the tongue from falling back into the airway, so we can continue to provide positive pressure ventilations. Once we got him in the truck and we continued that effort, we set up a suction system, and we prepared to intubate Mr. O'Keefe. We prepared a suction system just because as I was ventilating outside of the ambulance, there were some secretions in the airway that I could see, and you could kind of hear it as you go to squeeze in breaths into the individual. You can kind of hear the secretions kind of getting like bubbly and stuff like that. So we knew we were going to need to suction him. So we got him in the truck. We really quickly suctioned him, and then we were able to intubate him successfully to definitively give him an advanced airway and give him better ventilations, get more oxygen into his system.
Now, you mentioned that he wasn't warm, he was very cold.
No, he was still very cold.
What does the team do to try to assist with that?
The most basic thing that we did, we turned the heat on as high as it would go. We also stripped all of his clothing off, just getting all of that wet clothing off of him. I didn't really have a role in that particular part of it, just because once you're on the airway, that is kind of yours. Nobody can breathe for him, so every time I squeeze that bag, he gets a breath. So I'm kind of tied to that airway for the duration of the call.
So when your colleagues are stripping the clothes off him, is your attention on the clothes or more on the airway in your job?
No, I'm maintaining the airway. If an endotracheal tube is dislodged for whatever reason, it is typically more difficult to get one in. So the integrity of that tube staying where it is and not being dislodged, that is another key aspect of airway management.
As you're doing that, do you notice what any of your colleagues are doing to help?
Like I said, they were working on clothing removal. I believe they were also getting intravenous and intraosseous access on this individual to begin medication administration. But again, I was quite focused on that airway, just making sure that it was maintained and we didn't lose any tube. We didn't lose any end-tidal CO2, which is just another monitoring device that we use to confirm that tube is in place.
How quickly do you get to leave the scene and start moving towards the hospital?
I honestly couldn't give you an accurate estimate. It didn't seem to be out of the ordinary realm, though. We were able to move within the flow.
In addition to Mr. Keefe being very cold, did you notice any other injuries on him?
So I noted that he had a hematoma right above his right eye.
Could you explain to us what that is?
Yep, it's just, for lack of a better term, it's just a big egg. He had a pretty good bump over his eye.
And you said his right eye?
Yes, sir.
Did you know how that hematoma was caused?
No, sir.
No idea?
No.
In addition to the hematoma above his right eye, what other injuries did you see?
There were also several scratches on his right arm, just below his shoulder, and traveling down his right humerus. They terminated right about his right elbow, just above it.
Those scratches, have you also described them as abrasions?
Yes, sir.
Is there any difference in your mind, difference between scratches and abrasions?
Nope. These were they were deep, and they were not bleeding, but they were notably deep.
Did you ever describe it as furrows?
I did.
And in describing those scratches, do you have any idea how they were caused?
No, sir.
Okay. And did you notice any other injuries on Mr. O'Keefe?
No, sir. Those were the only ones that we noted. As I mentioned, we suctioned a little bit of blood out of the back of his airway as well. I believe it was blood, mucus, and saliva. But those were the extent of the injuries that I was able to note.
Did you notice anything about the back of his head?
Actually, yes, I did. I apologize. There seemed to be a little bit of matted blood around in his hair around there. Really didn't see anything too obvious at the time. He was also placed in a cervical collar as well, following intubation, and that was kind of there just to maintain his cervical spine. But there was, like I said, there was noted to be a little bit of dried blood on the back of his head.
At some point, did you finally make your way with Mr. O'Keefe to the Good Samaritan Hospital?
Yes, sir.
And just share with us what happens when you get there.
So after we got there, we handed off care to Good Samaritan Medical's physicians and ER nurses. We were able to give a report to the physician of just basic what we've done, what we've given for medications, in my case, what he was intubated with, and how he was being ventilated, how well he was being ventilated, and any other further pertinent information. Typically, we noted that Tony was the lead paramedic, so that is typically he kind of holds the room for a minute when we get in there and gives a big rundown, and then we back off and let Good Samaritan take over.
Okay. When the defendant told you that she hit him, did that have any significance to you?
No, sir.
Did it reconcile with the injuries that you saw before you that Mr. O'Keefe was suffering from?
No, sir.
And so at that point, was that information insignificant in light and perspective of your care?
Objection.
Sustained.
Okay. What role did that information play in your care after the defendant told you she hit him? How did that contribute or not contribute to what you were doing?
It really didn't help at the time. Again, I wasn't able to chase anything down from that. I just kind of took it, noted it, and moved on with my aspect of the cardiac arrest.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity at any point to see any video of that morning taken from any source, a police car, dash cam?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, I'd like to introduce a video stream.
Okay. So this will be in evidence? There are agreements with some of the evidence already?
I believe there's no objection, but I don't want to speak for the defense.
There's no objection.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you can show it.
And for the record, if I may note, this is Cruiser 683 Stream 2.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry. It is Cruiser 683 Stream 2.